So I invite Josh from Zcash to come in and present.
So my name is Josh Swihart. I am the Vice President of Growth for Electric Coin Company, and I'll be giving you an update on Zcash. All right, so Zcash, if you're not familiar, is the digital currency as HTTPS is to the web. And to give you some more context, back in the mid-90s, all transaction information, all information that was transmitted over the web was available and visible. And Netscape introduced SSL or encryption in the mid-90s. Again, for this reason, because if you were going to transact on the web, if you're going to send messages, if you were going to pay for goods and services, all of that information was available and visible to everybody. And so encryption was needed so that hackers or other third parties wouldn't be able to see what you were doing. So Bitcoin's like HTTP. The sender information, the recipient information, the amount is available for everyone to see for all time. And it was necessary because Bitcoin is trustless, and it needed all of the nodes, and it needs all of the nodes to be able to validate transactions. The person that is spending the Bitcoin has the Bitcoin to spend. It was known from the beginning. It was known within the Bitcoin community. It was known by Satoshi, but there was no knowledge of how to solve this problem. At the time, there was 7 scientists that were working on something called zero-knowledge cryptography and trying to figure out how to apply that to the Bitcoin blockchain. They solved it, and they went to the Bitcoin team and asked about adding it, and the Bitcoin team said no. And they said no because they felt like the cryptography was too novel and not ready for Bitcoin mainnet. So they approached Zuko Wilcox, who is the CEO of a different company, about leading a new project, forking Bitcoin and adding encryption. And Zuko was known within the Bitcoin community. He was known by Satoshi, published one of the first blogs that Satoshi then linked to on the bitcoin.org site. So the team was formed, and in 2016, in October, Zcash was born with the mission to empower everyone with economic freedom and opportunity. So Bitcoin is like HTTP, Zcash is like HTTPS, where the sender, the recipient, the amount, all of that information is encrypted on the blockchain so that nobody can see it. It's predominantly supported by 2 organizations, the Electric Coin Company that I work for, that Zuko founded, and the Zcash Foundation, which is a separate 501c3. ECC focuses on 5 areas. One is research and development. So we do deep cryptographic research, and we also have the chops to turn that into engineering. So we work on the core protocol, reference libraries and tools for the community. We also do work with regulators to educate policymakers and regulators and influencers. We work on adoption with exchanges, OTC desks, and other third parties. And we work on a demand generation, so public relations, community development, consumer awareness. Today, Zcash is consistently one of the top 10 to 15 most used cryptocurrencies, whether you're ranking it by transaction volume or payments or active addresses. It's supported on all the major exchanges with all the major wallets and custody providers and all the major trading and OTC desks. So with all that work, how does the project get funded? At the outset, the founders realized that it would take some time to fully implement Zcash, and some money was set aside, some to pay back some initial investors and some of the initial founders. 80% of the mining rewards would go to miners, and the Electric Coin Company received to date about 4%. So some of those founders also donated some money to fund the Zcash Foundation. That's where that has come from. Now, this issuance was only good for the first 4 years. So from October of 2016 through roughly November of this year. ECC puts out a quarterly transparency report, and you're welcome to check it out on the electriccoin.co site. It's 2 months in arrears. So this last transparency report is from Q3, or documents the receipts, the spending, the use of funds for Q3 of last year. And then the Q4 report will be out here in a couple of weeks. So in Q3, we received about 12,233 ZEC at 61.28 a coin, which is the average price during that quarter. That represents about $750,000 a month. And we had, at the end of September, about 5.6 million in cash at a closing price of 38.72. So the current holdings, the last line on the right, where it says ECC current holdings are approximately 4.2 million in USD and ZEC. That was at the time of the issuance of the report, which was in March. As you can see on the right as well, our major expense is employee wages. And then at the bottom, I just want to highlight security auditing for the quarter was 0%, but over the course of the year, it represents a significant portion of our spend. The Zcash Foundation also is transparent in their spending and in their budget. That's available on their site. Check out the 2020 Q1 report. So their budget for this year is about 2.7 million, and they're holding about 100,000 ZEC, 42 BCC, and about $44 million of USD on hand. So the question for the community coming into this year with the funds set to expire in November of 2020 is, how do you fund the evolution of a public good and align incentives across the community while protecting against coercive forces? So this is a graph of various proposals that were introduced. There were numerous proposals that were submitted by the community on whether or not to fund ongoing development, and if to fund ongoing development, how much, and then how should it be structured and how should it be governed. So a lot of proposals, a lot of dialogue, a lot of drama over the course of last year, of 2019. And ultimately the community voted for this, that 20% of the new coins issued over the next 4 years, so from 2020 to 2024, will directly support active contributors to the project. Now, there's multiple active contributors. So ECC, again, is one. And the community voted that ECC would receive 7% of the mining rewards. At $50 a ZEC, that's roughly $18 million over a 4-year period. The foundation would receive 5%, which represents about 13 million over 4 years. But the community carved out a new fund, and it was the largest percentage, aside from miners, for sure. And that's for major grants. So major grants were set aside for participants other than ECC and the foundation to come alongside the community to continue to build Zcash, to build on top of Zcash, to support Zcash globally. That allocation, again, 8%, is 21 million at 50 ZEC. But obviously, you know, if it goes to $500 a ZEC, then that's 200 million over the course of the next 4 years. So a significant pot. If you're interested on all the drama that took place last year, kind of issues in dealing with things like a trademark, how do you get consensus with the community where you're not clear on how to even define a community? Please join us for the main stage session at 11:20 on day 3 on Wednesday. Zuko, our CEO, will be on there. Peter Van Valkenburg, who you may know from Coin Center, but is also a foundation board member, will be on the panel, along with Mario, who's works at Placeholder VC, is a governance expert and was very active in the community discussions as well. It will be hosted by Chris Powers. So what's next for Zcash? We kind of look at things across 3 horizons. So in the short term, the next 0 to 6 months, we're really focused on community enablement in our app. And then the next kind of mid to longer term horizon focused on the new governance structure, as well as some scalability, which I'll talk through briefly. One of the things that you may have seen announced related to interoperability was the creation of the Zcash Developer Alliance. So these are top tier projects that are working on Zcash interoperability. This is an invite-only group to kind of kick us off. And the intent, though, is not to be a closed door group. It's really to do 2 things. One is to deliver interoperability, cross-chain interoperability. So the outcome is not just to meet and to talk, but deliver outcomes. And secondly, to involve and be open with the community. So there's a forum area at the Zcash forum site where you can follow along, and there'll be opportunities to engage, to leave feedback, to get engaged in hackathons and so on. Another thing that's coming soon is Zcash Heartwood. So if you're not familiar, Zcash has about 2 major network upgrades every year that are planned. And these can include a whole host of feature updates and things like that. So Heartwood is activated on testnet. It will be available, or it will activate on mainnet in July. One of the major features is something called Fly Client. So this supports interop. It supports things like potentially TZEC with thesis that would allow for wrapping of Zcash and use of Zcash within smart contracts, and also light client devices. Another feature that's coming and activating in July is shielded Coinbase. So today, mining rewards are created into a transparent address. So Zcash has the notion of a transparent address and a shielded address. The transparent address works just like Bitcoin. And that's what coins get mined to. Then they're passed through to a shielded address before they're paid out anywhere. After Heartwood, miners will have the option to mine directly to a shielded address and to pay out. So it could be that ZEC never see a T address. They're only used within the shielded pool. Another thing that was just released is something called viewing keys. And so with information that's completely encrypted on the blockchain, there are situations where users of accounts will want to disclose information without providing their spending key to third parties. So that might be useful with auditing or with regulators, and viewing key support is now in the protocol. Another thing that we've been working on, which I'm really super excited about, and hopefully you are too, if you're following Zcash, is fully native Zcash Z2Z shielded wallets. And so iOS wallets and Android wallets, we've been working on these. They've got a kind of brilliant user interface, really nice and clean and fast. We are not releasing the product, but we're releasing the source code. And that's dropping on June 10th. So you'll be able to download the source code. You'll be able to use the product. Hopefully other developers will pick this up and embed it. They'll create their own wallets and embed it within their existing wallets. And that will be available again June 10th. In support of that, we are partnering with Gitcoin on a hackathon around protect privacy. You can see the link to the hackathon at the bottom of the screen. We're offering about $6,000 in bounties. And our mobile development team will be fully available to you in the community during that time. And we're hoping to see some interesting projects and uses. Check out our blog, check out our Twitter account for some ideas that you might think about playing with. A major event as we move to kind of mid and longer term that's happening this year is Zcash's first halving. So if you've been around the space, you know that talk about Zcash's inflation rate being really high the first 4 years has been kind of a huge deal. So this will, in mid-November, I think it's, I don't know, somewhere between the 16th and the 20th, Zcash's first halving will occur. The new coins mined every 75 seconds will shift from 6.25 to 3.125. And at that time, the new development fund will also go into effect. Another thing that we're working on in the mid to longer term is something called Halo. It's something we announced last year. It's a cryptographic breakthrough that allows for recursive proof composition without the need for trusted setup. So what that means is with something like Bitcoin, the entire, and Zcash today, the entire chain is passed around. With this has the potential for just a proof that the chain is valid to be passed around, and to be able to use zero-knowledge technology without something called toxic waste. I won't get into what all that means right now, but it just means things could be very fast and very scalable without this kind of encumbrance that we've had in the past. We're also working on something called Halo 2, which I won't disclose right now, but something that we'll plan on releasing later. The other thing that we're working on in terms of both research and optimizing is layer 1 scalability. So inclusive of Halo, but Halo is only part of what we're working on and some of the ideas that we have. So we posted more information on the Electric Coin Company website. Check it out, and we'll be posting more over time. The Zcash Foundation is also working on a ton of things, and there's a link at the bottom to their Q1 again report. I won't highlight all of these things, but a couple of things I'm really excited about. One is they're also working on interoperability and cross-chain integration with Zcash, and specifically Zcash interop with Cosmos Peg Zone. And they've also funded a development team to create shielded support on Ledger devices. And so hopefully we'll see something from that here really soon as well. So there's a whole bunch of resources available to you, whether if you just do crypto, thanks for joining us. We don't have a lot, but if you want to dig deeper and learn about Zcash, we've got various social media sites that are very active. whether on Twitter or join Blockfolio. We publish a lot there. You go to our website. We are offering a monthly newsletter. So go to electriccoin.co. You can go to the bottom of the page and sign up for the newsletter. There's a blog, a ton of content. When you're ready to move beyond that and engage with the community, we have something called monthly Zeal calls, and these profile members of the community and things that the community is doing. Check those things out, again, from ECC. Go to the forum or Discord or Keybase or Telegram. We have communities in all of those places. If you are a builder and want to get engaged, one of the most underutilized sites that we have available is zcash.readthedocs.io. So the protocol is very well documented. There's all kinds of information on how to get engaged as a developer and to build along with us. And then you can find, obviously, all our stuff on GitHub. We also offer something called the Garden Club, which is a monthly, it's the first Tuesday of every month. It's for open source developers to kind of get together and share what they're working on. Offer perspectives with one another, help one another. I think the next one is tomorrow, if I'm not, if I'm correct. And then finally, when you're ready to expand, again, tens to hundreds of millions of dollars will be available for you if you're building on top of and with Zcash when the grants kick in later this year. If you're interested in the ZDA, let us know. And then again, if you're interested in hackathons of the wallet, please get engaged and reach out. We will have various members of our team at the virtual booth at the conference this week. Come by and say hi. Happy to answer questions that you have there as well. And I think with that, I'm done and happy to answer any kinds of questions.
All right, thanks, Josh. So just a handful of questions. First one right here. So just when you think about the regulatory environment for privacy coins, how are you guys kind of navigating it? And what are the concerns around privacy coins listings on exchanges, and generally how you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think regulators are getting a lot smaller, a lot smarter and deeper. And I think there's a broad realization that at some point in the future, there won't be this notion of a privacy coin. That if we're going to do commerce on the web, privacy has to be supported, and it's actually in the best interest of their citizens. It's in the best interest of their businesses, and it's best interest in their own national security that everybody can't see all transactions for all time. So they're kind of figuring out what that means and how to balance that with their ability for law enforcement to do their jobs. So we are active in conversations with regulators in the US. We're active in conversations with regulators in other countries. Most, I would say, are being really thoughtful. And again, like in places like the US, so in under NYDFS, which is some of the most heavily regulated, which is one of the most heavily regulated areas in the world, there's broad support for Zcash, as Gemini and Coinbase and BitGo and all those folks are able to support Zcash on the exchanges.
Gotcha. So kind of a related question from the audience. I guess, what do you think the role is of privacy-focused layer ones, especially when privacy-preserving technologies like ZK snarks can potentially be adopted by other layer ones, say like Ethereum, as an application? Yeah,
so one, I think privacy or supporting encryption at layer one is extremely important. And so, maybe if I'm understanding the question correctly. So one, like we've seen with traditional systems, right? If you try to encrypt data at a UI layer or at a business object layer or something like that, it's all hackable. The data has to be encrypted at the base, or it can be exposed. It's a honeypot for folks to be able to hack it. And so I think it's great that other projects are looking at, how do they apply encryption to layer one, and in order to be able, to provide privacy for their users. Yeah, it's good.
Gotcha. Right. I guess with that, we're coming up on the end of the first session. Thanks, Josh, for presenting on Zcash, and we will go on to the next.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.